Hey everybody, welcome back to the next episode of Dear Kismet. My name is Laura and I am a 6 of clubs, 10 of clubs.
I'm Paula and I'm the 7 of diamonds and 9 of hearts.
And I'm Candy. I am a 6 of diamonds, ace of diamonds.
We have a celebrity today and Candy is going to tell us all about why we chose to do an episode on Jim Carrey.
Yeah, okay. Whoa, where to start? As I do with each celebrity that we talk about here on Dear Kismet, I spent a little bit of time remembering and researching Jim Carrey. He's known as a funny man who made us belly laugh in films like Mask, Dumb and Dumber, 1 and 2, one funnier than 2, the Ace Ventura series, Batman Forever, Liar Liar, the list goes on and on. But there's a deeper, more serious side to Carrey's work too, as we first saw when dark met funny in The Cable Guy. Remember that flick? Or when our perspective of reality started to shift in The Truman Show. Or when shit just got weird in Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, which happens to be one of my personal favorites of his, actually. So Carrey has won 2 Golden Globes for The Truman Show and Man on the Moon. He's also won numerous MTV and Kids and People's Choice Awards. So he's just an all-around funny guy loved by everybody. Movies aside, though, if you watch some of his speeches and interviews, you'll start to see that this man known for slapstick physical humor is really quite deep and contemplative. Personally, I think this is true of most fabulous comedians. They've got this river that runs really deep that they tap into to make real life funny. But Jim tells a story, I found this in one of the interviews that I stumbled upon, of being a young child entertaining his family in his living room. And then he'd retreat to his bedroom with a legal pad and try to figure out the purpose of life. I mean, can't you see, like this little miniature Jim Carrey, big glasses, giant legal pad, just trying to make it all make sense. So he shares this story while he's choking back tears, and you can see and feel his connection is still so real to this little child that he was. And he says that one day he realized that his purpose was to help ease suffering. I mean, isn't that why we're all here? And that he's been doing it the whole time in the living room, making people laugh to help ease their suffering. What a profound realization for such a young man. And I think we can see that depth now as he's really coming into his own. So in a 2009 interview, Carrey stated that he struggled with depression for a significant portion of his life, which it seems like a lot of comedians do. He went on in a 2010 interview with 60 Minutes after he got off Prozac to say that he's so serious about trying to get himself healthy. There's no alcohol, no drugs, and not even coffee. We see this evolution of his life and his quest for answers coming together so eloquently and with such inspiration in his 2014 commencement speech to the graduating class of the Maharishi University School of Management. And if you haven't watched this video, first of all, I don't know how because it made its rounds on Facebook, but it's a must-see. And if you haven't seen it in a while, go back and watch it again. It's fucking fantastic. Okay, but let's get to why we're really talking about Jim Carrey. In his most recent interviews on the red carpet at New York's Fashion Week, followed by a series of interviews at the 2017 Toronto Film Festival, they all left us scratching our heads and wondering, is Jim okay? Is he depressed? Is he back on meds? Is he enlightened? Okay, so stay with me on this one because I'm about to sound like Jim Carrey doing a Jim Carrey interview. In an interview at the 2017 Toronto Film Festival, Jim Carrey said about playing the role of Andy Kaufman in the film Man on the Moon, which resulted in making a film about the film called Jim and Andy, The Great Beyond. Carrey said that playing Kaufman led Carrey to realize that he lost himself. That in playing the role of Andy Kaufman, he was able to see he'd also been playing the role of Jim Carrey. I think it's the statement that he made on the Jimmy Kimmel show sums it up perfectly. He said, and I quote, "I used to be a guy who was experiencing the world, and now I feel like the world and the universe experiencing a guy." So in my opinion, Carrey is having a break from the confines that our existing matrix has placed on how we view ourselves, how we define ourselves, usually separate from our real self. Ironically enough, over 20 years after making the movie Mask, I think Carrey's finally taken all of his off. What we're seeing is a man discovering his connection to everything, to being everything, and to no longer hiding. So if you're like me, you're ready to have more Jim Carrey in your life. There's a new 30-minute Showtime series called Kidding, where Carrey pairs back up with director Michael Condrey, who Carrey worked with on Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. So I'm rooting for you, Jim. Stay clean, shine bright, and keep being you. I know that was a lot about Jim Carrey, and he's a complex guy. And that's probably why he's so damn funny. So Laura, we know what some of the media had to say about Jim. You've heard what I had to say about Jim. Now tell us what the cards have to say about Jim.
Well, first of all, I just want to say that I freaking love it when he's doing what he's doing out on these red carpets. A lot of that like higher spiritual stuff just doesn't make sense until you actually start to wake up. It's like, I can remember listening to certain spiritual teachers being like, what in the fuck are they talking about? And then like a year later, I can listen to them and go, oh, okay, now I get it. Don't ask me how that switch got flipped, but that's kind of, I think, what's going on with him here. But we're going to find out from Paula for sure in a second. So let's go over his cards. He is, okay, hold on. While Candy was talking, I was looking up Andy Kaufman's birthday, and then I was like typing it up. I'm like, it's January 17th. He's a 10 of diamonds, 5 of hearts. And then I looked back up. They have the same birthday.
Yeah, I just discovered that today too. I'm like,
So we'll
oh my God.
Oh my God. So they both are January 17th. But so that means that they are both a 10 of diamonds, which we call the big yes networker, and then a 5 of hearts, the enigmatic seeker. So I'm going to let Paula take it away, both Capricorn. The 5 of hearts comes in because of the Capricorn, and that's their planetary ruling card, which is the second most important card. So you have your birth card and then your second most important card. And you can look both of those up on our website, kismet.cards. And we've got other stuff you can look up there too. But Paula is going to take it away and explain and tell us what she's feeling about Jim Carrey and maybe how Andy Kaufman fits into that and so on.
Okay. So I'm kind of deciding with myself, am I going to go down, as Candy said so aptly before we started recording this, the Jim Carrey wormhole? And it's like, yeah, it's the Jim Carrey toroidal field. And like, I've been bathing in his energy.
You say that all the time about 10 of diamonds, don't you?
Yeah, totally. Yeah. Right. And so
toroidal field is like this.
Okay. So
it's like a donut.
It's a donut that's revolving energy, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, so I nicknamed the 10 of diamonds many things. We've called it the big yes networker. He did a film called The Yes Man. 10 of diamonds can't say no to anything. They're just like, oh, they sit in the very center of the card spread, and they're connected literally to everything and everybody in the most, it's like they're the most equidistant to everybody from all of the cards. And there's some kind of bizarre esoteric teaching about the location of your card in the spread and how that translates into meaning. Oh, and when I tap into Jim Carrey, I tap into this layer of what he's talking about when he says to the reporter, I'm not really here. And she's like, okay, so like, you're telling me that like, I'm not real. He's like, no, this is just like the construct, this idea of who you are is just this avatar. And they're like, well, you bought like a really expensive leather jacket at the fashion film festival. So if like, you're not here, why did, and he's like, I got it for my avatar. Okay. Like he's having fun wearing this jacket being Jim Carrey. And it's like, I get it. I've slowly like merged into this field where I'm like, oh, I totally get it. And it is really esoteric. And it reminds me of this moment I had when I was meditating and I wanted to connect with the universe, and it came from inside me and came out. And I can't explain it or say like, yeah, I totally get that. It's like, it's this experience that just happened to me, but it was like the involution of the universe. And somehow it was inside of me instead of being out there. Okay, so I'm going to back up a little bit to my more Paula coherent thoughts in the 3D world as I was contemplating him this last week. And I thought, okay, I don't have a name for this. It's not like I can track spiritual development on some kind of a graph, but I just have this sense that he is going through a particular transformation that people can go through when they disidentify with the ego. And I think that's the most 3D way to just bring it down to the ground and say, Jim is going through this transcendence of the self. And as a 10 of diamonds, it just really, really, it fits for his archetype to understand this, because it's like he's in the middle of a tornado. And it's like, I can just see this compression energy going on of, now I'm Jim and I'm going to be funny and I'm going to, because this is just who I am. This is my nature to do it. And then this bouncing back out to, you know, and then like the bounce when he finally was doing Andy Kaufman, and he's like, Andy Kaufman was just doing Andy Kaufman. And then he bounced out and he got it. I'm doing Jim Carrey. Who am I? And that's what he's dealing with. It's like, who am I? There is no I. There's just the all pretending to be me for a while, pretending to be you, playing this universe, dancing itself. And it's, so yeah, I spin off and I like get it. And then words they don't seem to convey it, you know?
Then it sounds like a Jim Carrey interview.
Totally, right?
I think to focus maybe a little more, I would like to know, like, so we've got Jim Carrey. Well, clearly he's like kind of an unusual sample of a human, I guess. But what's his work as a 10 of diamonds? Is that like, what's his Pluto
good.
stuff? You were talking about his Pluto card earlier.
Right. Okay. So this grounds us nicely. This is a part of his interview that I'm going to read. This was very recent. The only way to step into the river of tears. Well, so they were saying, how do you transcend? It was like a major question about spiritual growth and development. And this was his answer. The only way to step into the river of tears and the sorrows of your life, is to step into the blah, blah. The things that everyone is avoiding, with everything from drugs to drink to sex to gadgets and whatever else you can distract yourself with. All of it's designed for you to never stop going and moving, and for God's sake, not to feel the abyss. Don't allow yourself to feel the abandonment and pain that you've suffered. I've done it. I'm through it. I'm sure there will be things that happen again, but I realize that by letting myself fall into it completely, that it's not to be feared. Death is not to be feared. So it's like he dropped into the center of this toroidal field, which is part of being the 10 of diamonds. Okay, so here his Pluto card is the 9 of hearts. And here's where I just get so climactically excited, because I just wrote this last week. 9 of hearts, Pluto. There is another aspect to this card. So I'm describing the role of his Pluto card in his life. The Pluto is the most difficult card you have. It's the death and rebirth experience, transformation. And it's the 9 of...
Just a quick second.
Yes.
Everybody has a hand, and everybody has a Pluto card in that hand. And we're soon launching this on our website, where you'll get your free recording on your Pluto card, so your transformation. So Paula's going to read the one that would be for the 10 of diamonds card, but it's actually the 9 of hearts Pluto transformation.
Thank you. Okay, so this is what I wrote about his Pluto card. There is another aspect to this card, the need to stop and feel your feelings. This Pluto card stops you in your tracks at significant points along your journey, such as a devastating loss, and demands your attention. You may go through a major depression. The question is, what are you depressing? As your card sits at the intersection of Jupiter and Jupiter, so that's where the 10 of diamonds sits. It's Jupiter and Jupiter, right square in the middle of the 52 card spread. You can be sort of addicted to Jupiter energy, which is expansive, visionary, happy, and optimistic. Your Pluto card sits in the intersection of Saturn and Saturn, which is just the opposite, contracting, critical, serious, pessimistic. This is your shadow side, and it may come in the form of catty judgments about others. Your Pluto work, dear and precious, sunny 10 of diamonds, is to contract, to go within, to stop, to evaluate, and above all, to feel. You create so much life all around you, and you are so productive, but it's easy to get your identity all bound up with that. You impress a lot of people, don't you? But your fear is, what would I be without all that? The answer is this: you are infinitely worthy because you exist. And now he's transcending that and getting to this, I don't even exist. And he's like, I want to liberate everyone from the idea that they exist.
Yeah.
So anyway.
Can I show this that you keep mentioning? And we have a series of videos called Planetary Energies that we're talking about this a little more, but she's talking about this intersection of Jupiter. And so if you look right in the center, I hope I'm getting it right there, is the 10 of diamonds. So what she's saying is the 10 of diamonds people are equidistant to not every card, but they're as equidistant as they possibly can be to the whole rest of the spread. So when she's talking about that toroidal field, they're just like right in the center of it, kind of in the, almost like the empty vacuum. In the center of the field, there's a space inside the donut, so there's like nothing going on inside there.
You know, Paul, it's interesting. I didn't really want to talk about this, but because you mentioned it in the Pluto, right, we're gonna go there. I just don't want to go into the ugly. So he lost his girlfriend. I can't remember her name right now. Thank you. It was I think it was a couple of years ago now.
Mm-hmm.
And it seems like the death had really rocked him. He became very private about it, and then like lawsuits started to happen that I think made him go even more inward. So it was and I've seen some of his response to interviews and quotes and statements in the suit where, you know, he's basically saying they're coming at me with this because I'm Jim Carrey, because they think that they can get money, because they think I'll go behind a closed door with an attorney and just pay them to make this go away, but I'm not going to do this because this is like false and it's not true. So I feel like that's almost like a rug that was pulled out from under him unexpectedly, because she killed herself. That it's caused him to go even deeper inward than he already was doing throughout his life. And that might be why now all of a sudden this expansion is so much bigger. I don't know. I mean, I don't know what's in the cards or where he was at that particular point in his life, but it just seems like it's changed him, because his interviews, while he was on this path, his interviews have gotten a lot deeper since her passing.
Yeah, that's definitely true. Yeah, the most difficult thing for a 10 of diamonds is to experience a loss and have to go through grief, and that whole 9 of hearts thing pulls you so far down into yourself, and it brings up a lot of questions of worthiness and that kind of thing. And I kind of hate to say this, but the very first time I saw Jim Carrey in Ace Ventura, you know, I was like, oh my God, this guy, his energy is so big and it's so loud. And it was kind of, I don't want to say offensive because he's so freaking hilarious, but it was like, you know, it kind of slammed me. And I had this instantaneous feeling, he doesn't really know who he is yet. It was just this flash of insight, and it was like, oh my God. And the cool thing about the 10 of diamonds is they are the yes man. Another of their karma cards is the Queen of Spades, which means they're all about taking responsibility for their journey and their life and their growth. So yeah, so loss is really difficult because it pulls them in the opposite direction that they want to go. And if you think about that toroidal field, if it pulls them down into the center, then they're going to come up around again.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So now tell us about these two people with the same birthday. So Andy Kaufman having a January 17th birthday, and why Jim Carrey might have over-identified playing that role.
Oh my God. So it's also Benjamin Franklin's birthday. It's also the birthday of a really dear friend of mine who actually submitted a question a while back, Brittany. There is an availability that they feel that they have to the world, but they also have a really deep interior life because they have an equal amount of aces in their hand as 10s. So to have to answer to that deep, intimate inner life, I'm not sure why that's coming up, but it's just a generality about 10 of diamonds. And I watched this Andy Kaufman interview. The one I happened to watch was in 1980. He was coughing throughout the whole interview, and if he did die, which he probably did do in 1984 of like lung cancer, some awful, awful form of lung cancer, he was beginning to feel it. And the entire interview, like he sat on his chair to give this little performance, and he didn't imitate anybody. At one point, he told everyone to stop laughing because he was trying to be serious. He told his life story about how at that point in his life, he lost his marriage, he lost everything, he lost a whole bunch of money, and now he'd moved to New York. And he said, I'm serious. If you guys can like throw me some money, can you help me out? And he was dead serious, and everybody was laughing. So that was his 9 of hearts moment. And then there was something else. I would be interested in seeing what evolved after that moment in his life. But there was something else that came through to me when he was sitting and not talking to David Letterman. They just had the camera on his face. And the audience was laughing hysterically at him just sitting there doing absolutely nothing, like his nose was running and he wiped it, which was probably authentic as well. And they thought it was part of some act. And the longer I sat and just looked at him doing and saying nothing, just kind of looking around, I just felt this authentic presence. There was something so precious about him just being a human being, and there was a complete fullness and a complete emptiness in that in the same moment. And again, it's like I'm getting all esoteric, and this is so hard to describe, but it felt really similar to the insights like Jim Carrey's soul. And even though he's trying to transcend personality, the flavor of Jim Carrey enlightenment is very bouncy and Tigger and kind of in your face. And Andy Kaufman's flavor of it was stillness. He brought a quality of stillness to this, you know, not saying, Jim, that you don't have stillness about you, but it's just kind of an affirmation that it's really hard to get out of being who you are until you reach like ninth dimensional consciousness. You know, there's a particularity about you, and that's okay. God wanted to be particular. That's why you're you. But anyway, ground me, Laura. What was I talking about?
It sounds like they're a yin and a yang to each other almost.
Yeah.
Like Jim's very yang and Andy was very yin. And maybe in Jim playing Andy, he found this balance that he hadn't quite felt before.
That could very well be. I watched a side-by-side of Jim's movie and the actual performance he was imitating, and they were very different. And I just knew that Jim made a decision. I mean, he's the consummate imitator. He made a decision at some point to be himself and to trust what naturally came out, because Andy Kaufman's eyes are like this. And when Jim's doing the same thing, they're like this. Like he's doing the crazy eye thing. And he's very animated and just adding a whole bunch of shit that Andy didn't to his performance, but I knew it's because he gave himself permission to be his particular expression. So yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if there was an alchemical thing that happened. And I think they're 13 years apart, if I'm not mistaken, which means in the Chinese animal 12 animal thing, it meant that their animals were right next to each other, and there's always a lot of contrast. So what that means is that one is literally yin and the other is literally yang.
Oh, good job.
Odd and even.
Boom!
She got it.
For the win!
That's cool. Oh my God. Amazing. Yeah. All right.
I want to say one more thing about Jim. At age 55, he is concluding a 7-year period, which in which the 9 of clubs has been the Pluto card, which is letting go of an old paradigm and inviting in kind of a universal consciousness. There's also a very strong 10 of spades and Queen of Hearts thing, which is the Neptune intersection. And his artwork is his Neptune card, the 3 of spades. So he's in a Neptune phase, maybe of his own making, but it's all about consciousness. So the next 7 years, this is very exciting for all of us because his long range card is the 4 of clubs, which means he's going to take all this transcendence and put it into an intelligible package of information.
Like a movie or a book or something.
Yep.
That we get to all benefit from.
Yeah.
Cool. Exactly.
Helping to wake people up.
Amen.
That's exciting.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, well, thanks for watching, everyone. Feel free to jump over to kismet.cards, look up your card, your second card, your planetary ruling card, get your cosmic connections, and share this video if you liked it. We will see you next time. I'm Laura.
I'm Paula.
I'm Candy.
Thank you for watching this episode of Dear Kismet. We would love it if you would subscribe to our channel and share this video. Go to our website, kismet.cards, to look up your card and cosmic connections, and to ask us a question. You can also find us over on Facebook and Instagram at Kismet Cards.